Good evening, everybody. So, it looks like we are just about up and running. Since this game's music is a little bit dodgy, we may not stick with the jazz jukebox the entire time that we play this, but that's where we're going to start. So, what we've got in front of us here is a lovely little scenario that I cooked up. This was originally for a group game that I was involved with, but it didn't actually go very far before we ended up calling it quits. Let's display the whole thing. I am noticing a little bit of a performance problem, which is probably, at least likely as not, caused by my computer running out of system resources. So what we're going to do is kill my browser for the moment. And that should lighten things up considerably. At least once it finishes closing. We're also streaming at a significantly higher resolution than we've been recently. So it's going to be a little bit more prone to jank. I sincerely hope that won't be the case, but I am at least going to prepare myself for it. Okay. So we've got a pretty busy map, lots of stuff to do, loads of industries, loads of towns. Most of this map was made by hand. There's a little bit of it that I did programmatically in GIMP to make the height map. But pretty much everything else that you're seeing here, I want to say the rivers were automatic. It's been a while since I've messed with this particular scenario. I'm inclined to say the water was automated, or the river placement rather. Yeah, that's what it was. The scenario editor did that part on its own, but all of the town placement, all of the industry placement, well, most of the industry placement was done by hand. I did a couple of batches of random placement, but for the most part it was under control. Yeah, so I put a fair amount of effort into this. I haven't actually played on it more than just a little while to test it out, so we're gonna actually have to see if it's any fun. We've got generally 4 continents and a couple of small islands, and just crap loads of cities. This isn't actually that dense compared to some maps that I've seen, but this is about as dense as I was willing to go. And it was actually, what we're using here is the JGR patch pack, which enhances the game's functionality in a number of ways. We're also using a crap load of new GRFs, which are basically used to extend the core game's functionality. So, for example, they add more cargo types, more industries, more vehicles. They change around what towns and roads look like. I mean, you can see here these roads have this weird, like, tiled pattern on them that I really like. I'm pretty sure that's actually from a Japanese graphics pack. So it's supposed to look like small Japanese village roads. But I happen to really like the way that it looks in conjunction with like this British buildings pack. Yeah, there's kind of a lot going on. For anybody else who plays this game generally, let me pull up the new GRFs so that you can see what we're using here. Some of it I'm pretty sure is set up incorrectly, but that's because I'm a bit of a derp. So yeah, if you ever want to recreate this setup for yourself, this is what we're using here. The biggest ones are the North American Railway set and Road Vehicle set. The Road Replacement set and Total Town Replacement set, that changes town behaviors. We're using a whole bunch of add-ons for the North American Rail set and Road set to kind of make those a little bit bigger and more complete. We're also using the AV-8 Aviators aircraft set, Industrial Stations Renewal, which makes a lot of pretty and interactive station tiles. We're using Fish Is Not Ships, which I think is what that stands for. It's basically a bunch of new boats. And we are using, let me see if I can even find it in here. Here we go, the Fears Industry Replacement set. Now what that does is it completely strips out all of the existing industries and replaces them with new, considerably stranger, and also more realistic stuff. So this is a dairy, which is not a core industry or a vanilla industry. Down here, let's see, I don't have an industries map up. So yeah, we've got sheep farms. So for example, with sheep farms, that replaces the normal farm, as does the arable farm. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of farm. There's a whole bunch of different stuff, and most industries take something and produce something. So there's actually cyclical production chains. So this takes engineering supplies, which makes it produce sand and stone faster. So yeah, if you deliver 84 crates within a month, within 3 months, then for the next 3 months, production is quadrupled. So you can actually influence the way that industries work that way. Basically, there's just a bunch of neat stuff, and we're gonna have the map really big because there's gonna be a lot of stuff that we need to look at here. Set that for now to industries, so that we can sort of filter by what we wanna service. And we also are probably going to need to move the jukebox. Let's put the jukebox right there. We'll have that docked up there for now. Transparency stuff can stay there, and then with that, I think we're just about configured for how we want to actually play. I think all of the game options are how I want them. We might be changing some of them later, since I don't actually recall which settings have changed in the latest version of this patch pack. So, as far as starting out, we're going to make a town called Twitchton. We're going to actually take one of these towns and rename it. I'm not sure which just yet, but we'll want something that is fairly pretty, since this is all designed for aesthetics. This entire mod pack we developed was designed for aesthetic appeal. So what we're going to do is look at the contours, because we want something near mountains. Let's take a look at Mexico. This is Mexico, a city of 299 people. We are obviously using North American names for everything. Also take note, the year is 1875. And with the patches that we have enabled, it's going to be a little bit slower than normal game progression, assuming that that's set right. That's one of the things we're going to need to check. And the new GRFs that we're using have a lot of super old-timey vehicles. So we've got very little to start with. We've got like the Planet engine. I think we can get DeWitt Clintons pretty soon, although I don't know whether we start with them. So there's an easy way to check. Vehicle types, available trains. So these are the trains we can start with. So just some super basic stuff. Norris, American, Mogul, Consolidation, Grasshopper, Camelback, TD Judah, and Porter. So that's all the locomotives we can get, including this tiny little thing. This is literally just a boiler on wheels. They're very funny looking. So we've got a whole bunch of different coach types. Even already we've got a fair variety just because of how many things we have installed. We've got some road vehicles, not a lot, but some. We have trams and steam trucks and horse and buggy carriages. So we can carry passengers, mail, and just generally certain kinds of cargo. I don't know whether we can carry everything with what we have right now, but either way, we're not going to want to rely on these too heavily because they're very small. We've also got early era steam trucks. They're pretty expensive compared to the equivalent. So we've got flatbed carriages. Even a 4-horse is only $3,000, and this is more than double that at 7.5. 30 horsepower, 8 miles an hour. So this is even faster. But this has significantly more tractive effort. Basically, there's a lot of decisions to make with every vehicle purchase. We've got trams, so there actually are tram tracks that we can place down. Streetcar stuff, so we can place down streetcar tracks over roads or on their own. We can get certain kinds of ships. This is going to get really cluttered for a minute, but we're gonna just clear all that out as soon as we're done looking at these. So we've got steamships, we've got early ferries, utility tug. I'm not sure what all these guys carry. Excuse me. It looks like it's refittable to just about anything. We've got freighters. These actually might be well worth investing in early game, especially for like picking up fish from some of those fishing ponds or fishing docks. Ferries, trawlers. Oh, that should be useful. Dedicated hold for fish. Oh, and we can carry other stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Express freight is deck cargo. Oh, cool. So there's actually, some of these are pretty nuanced. There's a lot of stuff to poke at. And no aircraft yet. So those are going to appear in another couple of decades, or maybe, maybe a few decades. Let's see. Let's take a quick look at our company here. And Bigwig. No, he does not run our company. I do. Cog the Cat. And the company name, Twitchton. I don't see that we've got any viewers turning up just yet. Whoa, I spoke too soon. Somebody just joined. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. We are deciding on some information about our company. We're going to do company colors, the face of our esteemed leader, who right now is me, but we might not keep it that way. And then we also need a company name. We also need to figure out where we're going to be headquartered, where Twitchton is going to be. So we'll go, we'll call it Twitchton Transport, name change pending. New face, because this face is very ugly. There's some significantly worse things you can come up with in here. I don't know what they thought real people looked like. But, none of these are it. I am of very European descent. So, what I'm going to do for now is just load my default face, and then we'll look at our color scheme. So our standard livery is going to be dark blue, so that's my color, and then we'll have some other colors here. Let's go with mauve? No. Orange? Yellow? I'm inclined to go with orange, just because that's going to look nice. Leave everything as defaults for now, and I actually have no idea what these tabs are for. I think there's a new GRF that uses these, but it might not unlock until we actually have those vehicles available. So that's going to be us for now. Well, let's pick a city to be Twitchton rather than a town. Town directory. This music is bonkers. Let's see, is Randolph going to become a city? No. Is Empire going to become a city? No. Is Mexico going to become a city? No. Okay, so that was all three of the choices I had up to that point. There's no way White Plains is. Wyoming is going to turn into a city, although that's... Yeah, I guess it's close enough to the coast that we can pretend that it's Twitchton. So there's a junkyard, oil refinery, dairy farm. This is, of course, just what's within easy reach. Quarry, 2 quarries, so that might be worthwhile. What's this? A cement plant. Produces building materials. There's a brewery in Woodstock. Okay, so the oil refinery is not going to do much for a while. Now that I think of it, I should probably check and see whether industries are set to disappear. What? Love you. So yeah, Wyoming seems like a solid starting point. That'll let us connect all the way along this coastline and maybe get up into the mountains a little. I don't know that I want to start somewhere too central, so I don't want to have to worry about the entire map at once. Actually, maybe we want to start over here in this small island. Just on the grounds that that way we'll be able to more or less completely finish this up and then expand outward from there. Could also pose some interesting challenges in terms of getting off of the said island continent. Yeah, I guess we could put like a long bridge over that. But I think we'd be pretty limited in how we get our cargo off of said island, in which case that would encourage us to use other forms of transport. Mill Creek is a city, Seymour is not, Palmer is not, McLean is not. Is Avon? Yes, Avon is a city. Okay, so we could either start right on the coastline with some flat ground, or we could come down here and start in Avon. We'll probably also want to get some simple industry chains going, just in order to raise some capital, since with the limited vehicle types, bankruptcy is a very real possibility. Arable farm, machine shop, sugar refinery, metal workshop, sawmill. I'm just instinctively inclined to go with Avon. Twitchton. The local authority is going to hate me for a little bit, but that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually start with road vehicles, just to kind of bootstrap us a little bit. And we do not have a sound pack installed currently. I may think about changing that later. But at least for right now, I don't think we're probably going to do anything with that. Oops. Because the sound effects in this game are, while well designed, really annoying in practice. So we need a road depot, and then we need some stops. We go with buses, which are of course not at all actual buses. One here, one here, one here, and one over here. That way the catchment areas won't excessively overlap. There's nothing but passengers here right now. It is bus stations, not truck stations, so we can't pick up things like mail. What is that? Oh, that's not the tool I thought I was using. That's probably just a construction tile. That should go away shortly. Now we are still paused. We will unpause the game since it's good practice to play in real time. And that wasn't what I meant to click on. Cool. So we need some new vehicles. We need passenger carriages. We don't want to go with the small ones. We want... Let's go with 2-horse passenger carriages. So we'll have it go to Twitchton East, Twitchton Old Town Hall, Twitchton, and Twitchton Central, and just go in a loop around those. And then we are going to clone it a bunch of times, and then we will also be timetabling them. Oop, no. Auto separate, good. Okay. turn all of those vehicles on. And here they come. So we're going to actually just fast forward briefly so that they all get their timetabling done. Basically, it's going to just quickly measure how long it takes them to do a circuit, and then automatically separate the positions to match. And they are going to be going just every which way. We're making a tiny bit of money. Not much, of course. But yeah, as you can see, it's trying to keep them apart from one another reasonably well. It's broken down. Okay. It may seem weird that a horse and carriage can break down, but we are playing OpenTTD, and sometimes stuff happens. Twitchton, meanwhile, is now growing every 53 days. It's July 20th of the first year, after all of that fast forwarding. Let's take a look at our profit graph. Dismal. Okay. Income. We are actually earning money, it's just not enough to offset the operating costs that we have right now. So let's check the budget. We do start with a loan, and we will repay all of that as quickly as possible just to keep the loan payments down whilst we are becoming established. So let's resume fast forwarding just for a few moments. I want to see how this shapes up. Let's check our operating profits on each vehicle. Okay, so they're a little bit okay. They're offsetting the cost of purchase slowly. And this should slowly get more profitable over time. Yeah, okay, so we are making a little bit of money now. This is slightly profitable. And the money ticking down there that you're seeing is mostly just a byproduct of the operating costs. So those are calculated in real time, and then each time that a load is delivered, then it actually goes back and checks to see whether it was profitable, and updates that marker. So what we're going to do is actually make a second route. I'm going to delete all of the orders. Now let's start here and then go clockwise instead of counterclockwise, or counterclockwise. Yeah, that's the one. Oh wait, did I just change its shared orders? No, I didn't. Okay. Why can you not? Oh, crud. Whoops. I've made a mistake. Let's see. we'll stop sharing orders for road vehicle 4, and then it will do the clockwise route. Wait, no, that's completely wrong. It's one of those nights, tell you what. We'll do it that way. Road vehicles 2 and 4 are sorted out. Vehicle 3, I'm sure there's an easier way to do this with key commands, but I can't remember what any of them are, so we're just going to do it the slow way for now, and I will figure it out for next time. Okay, so now we have 2 routes going on, one clockwise, one counterclockwise. Should improve their profitability, since now if somebody needs to go, for example, from Twitchton Central to Twitchton East, they don't have to wait for a clockwise one to go through Twitchton and Old Town Hall. Simple enough. So meanwhile, we're going to probably want to also start connecting the towns up in some fashion. Let's get downtown road services going in some of these other cities. Let's put it down in Mill Creek. That's probably where we're going to want the other ones to be for now. So we need a depot. Place that there, and then again with the bus stations. We'll hide this for a moment. Where's the best place for this going to be? Probably here. Same thing, we'll do a 2-horse passenger carriage. This one will be directed to go clockwise. And then we will clone it once, twice, 3 times. Then we will do the same thing again. This one orders to go counterclockwise. So you're set to start at Old Town Hall. So start you at Woods, Central, Mill Creek, and Old Town Hall. Then you'll get another 3 copies. Ah! I am making money, just very, very slowly. Greenlight all of these guys so that they can start helping. And if you're wondering, yes, that was a that was most definitely a bulldozer in 1876. So this is going to be a colossal mess for a few moments while everything gets sorted out and the automatic timetabler gets everything figured out for us. The roads in this town are not particularly well connected, so it's going to take a few moments before things start making sense. For example, Mill Creek Central is sort of on a dead end. Which means they have to do these dumb little circle motions in order to get where they're going. But that's okay. It's just how it is for now. As the town starts growing, this should hopefully get... that road construction tile is blocking off. Okay, you know what we're gonna do is just build some roads to make that not happen anymore. Well, no we're not, because we don't have any money. Borrow $2,000. It's always a great idea. There we go, that should make these guys pathfinding a little bit less insane. And that's basically just going to be our starting bootstrap moneymaker. It's going to take a while before this becomes profitable enough that we can do much else, but it is, at the very least, quite helpful. Yeah, so we're slightly profitable. A little bit less profitable right now just because we've got all these operating costs to deal with, and we also took out another 20,000 of loan in order to pay for the road. Yeah, that's what we want to see. Nice little uptick in operating profits. Wow. These places really like their road construction, these two towns. Now these lines that we see over the stops are the cargo flow legend, which is basically just showing us how much density there is for each cargo. So if we need, you know, it might turn red if we need more vehicles on that line, or if there's too many, then it might show it that it's unutilized instead of overutilized. Either way, yeah, this is in pretty good shape at the moment. Intuition has just grown a little bit. We've expanded the paving. So we're still profiting a little bit. Again, not very much, but some. And because of the day length thing, this early game is going to be very slow. It's going to take quite a while to build up any real amount of money just because of the way that the day length patch affects things. Oh. Road Vehicle 4, oh no! Whatever will we do, Road Vehicle 4? I do like that when a horse breaks down, it starts spewing smoke. Something very entertaining about that idea. Okay, so what we're probably going to want to do is build a simple passenger line to get us started. So these bus stops are going to start growing the cities, and they're also going to start accumulating people that want to go places. So we've got loads of passengers waiting here. We're actually going to... we may want to actually adjust these vehicles. We're going to maybe change them to be larger capacity. place all vehicles on the list. So these vehicles, let's compare to other vehicle types. So that can only take 8, but it's, no, and it's slower as well. And it costs more to run. Does it? Yeah, it costs quite a bit more. This, on the other hand, is the same, basically the same thing, but a lot faster. Same deal with a 4-horse. Basically, each one of these, the upgrade gets 20 or a 4-mile-an-hour speed increase in exchange for that much added cost per year. So, yeah, it might actually be worth downgrading, honestly, since there's not any question about our station ratings, and we've got plenty of vehicles moving around. On account of cost, we'll probably want to leave it where it is right now. But that's not how we're going to leave it, particularly when early conventional motor vehicles start appearing. What's this? Junkyard. Scrap metal. I want scrap metal. And is there anything anywhere near here that cares? No. Steel mill, aluminum plant. The hotel. Oh yes, the hotel. That's probably why so much stuff is getting generated here. Yeah, we're actually doing pretty decently as far as transporting the output of this hotel. And this has a hotel as well, so we're probably going to want to put any train station near this old town hall stop. We're actually going to merge the stops together so that we can carry, or so that we don't have to transfer stuff, basically. We'll run the train line. We've got a couple choices. We can go around either coastline or over the mountain. Now, going up hills, especially with low tractive effort vehicles like what we have available to us now, is extremely costly in terms of time. Low speed rail, or we could do narrow gauge. Let's see what we have available. I seem to recall there's a way to display this by what track type it uses. No, I'm not seeing a way to do that. I don't remember. It has been some time since I last took a serious look at this. We do have a couple of narrow gauge rail engines at the moment. So what kind of power would we be looking at for these? What kind of speed? 440 American, or 440. Wow, I'm having a moment today from the look of it. 440 American, $31,000. It's a very high running cost. Wow, at least compared to what we have coming in right now. Tractive effort, 7,000 pounds of force. Speed 50 miles an hour. What about this 240? Alright, well, consolidation. Let's compare it to the consolidation. More power. Well, let's see. Is there a difference between the narrow gauge and the normal consolidation engine? Narrow gauge is a little bit slower, a little bit weaker, a little bit cheaper, and dramatically cheaper to run. Huh. Running cost is a serious problem for us right now, so... That actually is a serious consideration. These narrow gauge engines are quite cheap compared to their standard gauge equivalents in terms of running cost. Let's see what we got available here. Passenger car versus the narrow gauge passenger car. So this carries 50 passengers, can go up to 65 miles an hour, $340 a year. So faster basically is the main difference and more expensive. So our rail type isn't actually going to allow for that kind of speed on narrow gauge anyway. So yeah, let's go narrow gauge. I haven't actually really run with narrow gauge before. Now the question becomes, where do we build? And how? So we can run around this side of the mountain, maybe come up to maybe here for Addison. Now that position sucks a little bit. I'm going to try not to do too much terrain destruction or terraforming in this game, because the entire idea is to appreciate the natural terrain, or the parts of it that look natural anyway. I'd really like to get the train up to McLean and then also Seymour, so maybe like branch a line off here. It's gonna be a pretty big ask, I think. Bring that round this way, maybe a couple of bridges, and connect to Dresden and Palmer easily enough. But then there would be just a long stretch with no real connections at all. I'm thinking maybe our optimal route looks like that, an S shape. And then we break off a line for Seymour from McLean. I think that's what this is going to need to be. So baby steps. Let's start by building over to Addison. We're actually what direction do we want to do this in? It's going to need to be pretty close to where it is now, because any further away and we'll lose the ability to connect to Old Town Hall. The stations are going to probably be pretty short distance, short length. Have 2 tracks here, and then single track it most of the way. At some point it looks like we're going to have to come up to this layer here. Which means that we'll want the station probably there, about somewhere. And this looks like as good a place as any for a passing track. We're probably going to want this to be one way each. I'm not sure about that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, usable space. Okay. I'm just trying to think how the signal layout's going to work for this later. We're going to extend it just a little bit further than we think we're going to need, since it is going to head off this direction. It would be preferable to avoid any kind of increase or decrease in height, unless we absolutely have to. And yeah, we're going to be borrowing quite a bit of money to make this work, unfortunately. And also we're dodging out of the way of this so that the city can still expand. For those who are not aware of how this works. This is actually not a bad place for the station. Hello, welcome. Welcome to tonight's stream. We're doing trains right now. Because what else would we be doing, honestly? Oh no, that goes through the industry. Oh crap. We have a bit of a tight fit here. Does it? Oh, that's supposed to be fixed. We'll change it again. Well, wait, I can't change it again. Hold on. Got a lot of crap on my desk right now, and in order to make this perform well with a map this size, I had to turn off my browser. So I'm not quite as on top of it right now as I normally would be. Road Vehicle 11's profit was negative $92. How dare. Sorry, I just gotta log into my monitoring console on a different computer. Yeah, you know what, you're right, it does still think it's SimCity. I changed that. I swear I already changed that. Okay, alright. Is that better? So basically what we're doing right now is just sequentially cheesing off every local authority in spitting distance of our little island here. We might want to set up buses here just to keep McLean from getting too angry at me. And also to start building up passengers for when this can start operating. So to that end, we'll have our road depot. Oh, come on, seriously? Are you kidding me? Road construction in this game. They are paying road guy. Or possibly they're not paying road guy and are paying for it. Oh. Wow, I'm an idiot. I specifically designed this so that the city could expand, and then I just kind of undid that. There we go, that should be better. And today we're building a narrow gauge rail because we can't afford anything else. Let's get this block connected up. Wow, road work in progress. Thanks. Thanks, game. Oh, they hate me. Oh, they hate me. They already hate me. It might be too late. Got all the jazzy music in the world, and they'll still hate my company. It's just a travesty. Fortunately, I now have the infrastructure in place to change that. Let's demo some 4-horse passenger carriages in this town. Too expensive. Let's demo some 2-horse. Hi, Swordfish is here. Hi, welcome. Look, the tiles are just invisible. It's fine. Look, there's even a forest. Everything's fine. It's perfectly okay. I just can't see what I'm doing with constructing buses. So to catch you guys up, the plan here is that we started down here in our new little Twitchton over here, which is a dignified little town. And what we're doing is we're building narrow gauge rail in sort of an S shape. We're coming up to the other city on this island, Mill Creek. We're going to go past Dresden and Palmer, through McLean as we've started to do here, and then we're also going to run a small branch off into Seymour, which I think actually might just be a single line. It might just terminate here, I'm not sure. No, I don't want steam buses. They're very expensive to run, you see, and my company is not actually terribly profitable just yet. Well, actually I do need this because we need to make passenger carriages. So this is going to be traveling clockwise. And we're going to clone this so that there are 2 of them. And then we're going to do the same thing, but counterclockwise. And then we're going to clone that so there are 2 of them. Normally I'd go for 4. Road vehicle 8 is lost. Well, why? There's plenty of road, buddy. The first bus arrives at McLean. We're going to investigate this. Road vehicle 3 is lost. There is a lot of road construction in downtown Twitchton. Yeah, so this is a problem that we've been running into already. Well, okay, there's a couple of problems. One, the road vehicles, which are horses and carriages, tend to emit smoke now and then, which is not ideal. You don't usually want them to just burst into flames. But also, the much bigger problem is that, yes, smoke. Yeah, that's about the shape of it, isn't it? So a bigger problem is that there is quite a bit of road construction, and that causes them to stop being able to travel between bus stops. And with them already being terrifically slow, yeah, it's rough. It's a bit rough. So yeah, like this tile is now just gone, and that tile is gone. So in order to get from here to here, they have to go all the way around like that. I don't think there's anything I can do to stop that, unfortunately. Yes, the derpy middies. Okay, so that's McLean sorted out. Hopefully they will start not hating me quite as much soon. Oh, they hate me so much. Alright. So I guess that's something we're just gonna have to live with for now. I really don't want to do any terraforming, both because I want to just avoid terraforming in this game in general, but also because I have no money and we're just barely starting out, and I'm also trying to start trains already. So, so this station, I guess the short version of what I'm trying to say here is this station is going to be a really big problem. It doesn't need to be very long, but we do need like signals and all that crap. And unfortunately this industry is just in a really inconvenient spot. It's like I want to build that direction. Like I wouldn't mind knocking this road out. That wouldn't be too catastrophic, I don't think. But this industry, this clay pit over here is just really suboptimal. That's all. It's just very, very suboptimal. Let's at least get these two stations going. And we have lots and lots of station options, since this is dramatically more about aesthetics than functionality. So what we're gonna do is put down nice little country station. We're gonna have 2 platforms, length of 3, that direction. It's gonna live here, and we can't build it. Okay. Gonna have to wait for that number to not be red anymore, I think. Let's just fast forward a little bit. I'm serving your town. Love me. Adore me. Okay. Oh, it was waiting for the next horse. Okay, so McLean is growing, which is definitely a good thing. It's growing every 77 days. The local authority is not a fan of Twitchton Transport, which is not, by the way, the only name we're going to be using. We're just calling ourselves that for right now. Addison dislikes us, but not nearly as much. Yeah, let's try getting this station down. Yeah, that's dignified. I like it. It's pretty. We're not going to worry about signaling just yet. Wow, I don't even know what language that is. Buildings are nice looking, I guess. Zastavsky. Zastavki. Zastavki. There we go. Nastupist. Why is there a question mark? Stanley First Passenger Tram. Well, that's a low running cost. I might want that. I don't want the exclusive. That's not worth it to me, but I might want to invest in that pretty soon. I think there might be missing parts to these graphics. Yeah, there's a slightly dizzying array of station platform tiles. So we might be at this for a while. It's going to be a little bit bonsai. We're going to make careful choices about our stations and make them very pretty. Or at least that's the hope. For now, though, we just want to get things bootstrapped. We want to get things running. I have downloaded quite a lot of them. We're only using a few, though, believe it or not. That's wrong. Yeah, that should be fine, I guess. We don't want island stations, we want single-sided platforms. We want them that way. We're just gonna have this nice little, oh crap, I've done this wrong. Well, I feel a little bit dumb. I'm not going to do that, we're going to do this. We're going to connect it to Twitchton Old Town Hall so that that's the same thing as far as the game cares. We're just going to use a very basic station here for now, but we're going to go back and change that later. Foundations, fencing, buffer stops, that's the one we want. Okay, so now this is all the same station as this, which partially is good because it means the catchment area is just huge. Ah, we're mediocre in McLean. Excellent, we can build a station there now. And we're going to make match the local decor. Asphalt platform fears style, which is not really the style we probably want to use, but we're going to use it anyway. This is going to be attached to McLean Heights because we're slightly cheaters. Oh wow, that's... Apparently we can connect stations all the way down here if we want to be really cheaty. But we're not going to really focus on that too much. We're going to worry about that much later, I think. We're making pretty decent money, not counting the cost of new construction. Yeah, we're actually making a decent profit. We're going to slow it back down because it's already 1881. Lucky Addison down here with the only nice looking station we've made so far. We also will want some bus stops. Oops, no. Hey, McLean even likes me now. We will want some bus business happening here. That is going to be, whoops, that is going to be the Addison train station bus stop transfer, whatever. And we'll have another one down here for now. And it'll just be those two because it's a tiny, tiny town and unlikely to grow quickly into anything bigger. That needs to be connected or else our buses are going to just have a generally bad time. And then we'll put this, yeah, here should be good because they should pass by that most often. More often than they don't, I should say. The 2-horse passenger carriages have been treating us decently, so we're going to stick with those. And then we're going to have 3 of them. We're going to unleash them all on this tiny, unsuspecting town. Very slowly, of course. Okay. So we'll need another passing track. Flatbed steam trucks. Okay. We'll add a passing track. Let's put it here. That's going to probably be the best place for it. The trains are only going to be 3 tiles in length currently, because we're scrubs, basically. I'm also considering turning breakdowns off, because I'm not sure that that's going to be fun for this game. I don't think that's going to really add much. What we're going to do is delete these 2 tiles, and then actually we're going to build, or we're going to buy the land rights. Let's assign land rights, this and this, so that we can attach these and signal them up much later, whenever we're ready. The first bus arrived at Addison. Cool. So we need a narrow gauge depot, which is going to live here. We don't need to worry about waypoints at this stage, so we're going to do signals. We can't have roads there, that's not going to work. What we can do, however, is raise that by 1 tile. That will let us put a road here and there so that it's connected and so that the city's happy. Wait, that's not right. There we go, so that should all be happy now. Now we need to place a signal here so that the city doesn't try and expand onto that tile again. Okay. How should we signal this? We don't want programmable signals because that's just a mess and I don't understand how they work. Path signals here and here should be good though. One-way path signals to be here and here because we are going to be drive on right, and then we're going to do the same thing here and here, so the trains will only come in from one side. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, yeah, there should be plenty of room for them to not get blocked off, and for now these are going to be 2-way path signals because the trains need to be able to get to either side. We'll also be putting a depot down. Well, let's have it here. It's going to be one of the less inconvenient places to put it. I'm actually sort of foreseeing some problems with this. Well, I think it should be okay as long as it's able to path all the way through. Okay, so now we are up and running. We can get some trains going back and forth now. It's going to be extremely, extremely costly compared to what we've done so far. But luckily we have some bank balance, some bank loan that we can use. Now we are using narrow gauge, so we only have these vehicles to choose from. We will be using either a Porter or an American. Which one has more tractive effort? Yeah, I figured American would probably be better. It's pretty costly to run. Although, unfortunately, that is not a surprise to me. So we get one, and then we'll outfit it with a bunch of passenger cars. So there's 3 tiles of length. Do we need a caboose? No. No, we don't. So it should pick up an implicit order to go to Addison. And hopefully that'll get everything all peachy. Now we're going to clone it, and we're only going to run one for now. We're going to clone it again later. But first, I'm gonna have it wait. Yeah, so what it's going to do is it's going to basically activate each station that it passes along. And as it does so... Oh, hello. Maintenance! Train 1 is lost. Why? How can you be lost? How is that even possible that you're lost? Okay, go to Addison on the way. Can you do that? Or are you going to continue being dumb? Oh, nope, not the train's fault, not the train's fault. I have a signal backwards. Signal. Okay. There we go. Okay, so it now can path up to this signal. That's good. So it's going to activate the Addison station for train traffic. Basically, a station won't actually start accumulating passengers or any other cargo until it's had at least one vehicle pass through it. That's why it gives us these little messages that are like, oh, first passenger train comes to whatever. So let's fast forward while it gets there. I'm abusing fast forward now while I still can, because eventually... Yeah, it is a little strange. Eventually, what we'll be doing is opening this up to multiplayer. I want to get us a little bit established first so that we can basically manage... Ooh, 260 Mogul. Yeah, cool. I'm not going to be buying one, but that's cool that we have them. Alright, so now we're making literally in the thousands of dollars per trip. And if we look at the cargo manifest, it's completely empty. What the heck? Is there just no one in Madison? Or Addison? What am I saying? Addison, not Madison. Let's keep that and keep that. Clear everything else. Okay, so we're going back up to McLean Heights, where we have passengers that are going... Ah, they're going to Twitchton. Good, 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 good. So it has begun. 11 passengers. Nowhere near at full load right now, nor should we be, honestly. So we want to look at Addison, and we want to look at Twitchton Old Town Hall. Holy crap! Okay, then. Okay, yeah, that's better. So the running costs are quite high at $8,000 a year. But we have also adjusted the day length and so on, so it shouldn't be too onerous compared to normal gameplay. So yeah, $2,546 all in one go, but that still just brought us barely to not in the negatives. So it's a little bit rough. So yeah, we've got profit. Lifetime profit is not bad actually, which means that we should be able to deploy the other train. And since they're on the same route, they should automatically space themselves out a little bit with the timetabling feature. Oh, they're going to meet over here, that's cool. Hello. Okay, so yeah, we're already profiting with both engines. Excellent. Yeah, that's very good. The road vehicles are still acceptably profitable in terms of just continuing to run them. Some of these are not doing super well, and most of them are the ones in Addison, but we're actually going to keep running those regardless of the profit margin being so low, because we actually just need to have Addison growing, slow though it may be. It's growing every 143 days, so yeah. And Twitchton's already growing surprisingly large for this time period. We haven't even touched industry or done anything else with that, and we're already at 1,000 people. How does that compare up here to Mill Creek? Excuse me. So this is the end destination for our train line. Ultimately, what we want is a narrow gauge railway that dodges this mountain but connects all of the cities on this island. We've got our work cut out for us. Alright. So I'm going to leave the loan where it is right now, I think. Yeah, so we've got a decent amount of passengers building up at Addison. McLean Heights is surprisingly vacant, and we're probably never going to catch up with this. Let's see. Train running costs, road vehicle running costs, which are, yeah, they're just about profitable, just barely. They're just breaking even, those road vehicles. The trains, on the other hand, are quite profitable, so they can actually pay for the entire bus system just in their overhead. I would like faster road vehicles, but I don't think we can actually afford the running costs. I don't think they're going to pay off, which is a little bit ridiculous. They're not going to pay off until we can get something sufficiently speedy. Good tea. Cheap tea, but good tea. This is growing every 77 days. So we need $85,000 or $85,970 in order to create another one of these trains. So that's going to be actually a pretty good metric of their overall profitability. Our maximum loan went up, that's good. So they're chugging away, trains 1 and 2. Let's see where they meet this time. Yeah, it seems like they're kind of sliding towards one another a little bit. Quite a bit of transfer credit on that, which is as I would expect. Alright. Yeah, so that's $10,000 on that trip. So at this point we basically have two options. We can wait for the loan to come down, so basically just profit on our current system as much as we can, or we can start duplicating these trains, take out a higher loan, and then rely on them to make the money back. I think we'll want to probably build one more train, since this line isn't saturated yet. We'll want to leave that for now. And then just let their higher profit margins start paying the loan back down again. And with these small numbers we can see a little bit in more detail when the trains are actually arriving. I do love this graphics pack. These trains just look really lovely. So detailed for so few pixels. Now, as far as their scheduling goes. Let's see, yeah, they're running completely maxed out, which is good. The big problem at this point is going to be actually having too little capacity. Let's see, timetable. So you can do like dispatches. I don't really get how it works. Somewhere, I believe it's in this. Yeah, we've got the departures menu here, so we can actually see when each thing is expected to arrive and its current speed. So yeah, here in Addison Central, got a couple of late arrivals, specifically road vehicle 23 just isn't quite pulling its weight. Oh, we're looking at Addison Central, not Addison. No wonder. So what we're seeing here is that it's mostly just buses. Huh, for some reason the train arrivals aren't timetabled properly. I wonder why that's happening. Honestly, this feature is a little bit cryptic to me. I don't really understand it super well. I understand that it works, I don't really understand how. So let's see, last year we actually turned a profit, thanks in no small part to our 440s. Do we, at this point, want to start changing the color scheme around for certain vehicle types? So for example, passenger, steam passenger car. Let's set this to like blue and red, and now you can see they've all got red striping on them. Blue and purple. Or we could do light blue and dark blue, or something like that. I don't know. We'll keep it at default for right now, but it's some food for thought. We can also change the engines separately. So for example, we can say the engines have like a white stripe on them. Actually, wait, do they? Still don't really know what these are for. So they're orange. Yay! Stupid looking. Repay the loan. At this point, we're kind of in like watch the trains go mode, if it wasn't completely obvious. Let's turn the trees back on, just see how pretty everything looks. Got Twitchton, which is for the state of the overall map in 1883, an actual bustling metropolis. We've got Addison, which is still tiny. And we've got McLean Heights, or McLean, which is also not big, but it's modest. And it's trying to improve itself, it seems. So, what I'd like to do is get the third train paid off, and then resume expanding this train line. So I'm thinking that, given that our overall goal is Mill Creek, I think that our priority is going to be getting over there. I am, however, concerned about whether we should go for Palmer on the way, or whether we should simply run a branch line there later. I think we probably should run it over there. Make it nice and windy. What is this? Bulk terminal. Takes building materials, gasoline, and food. Makes farm supplies and chemicals. Take farm supplies to all these farms down here. But do we need to do anything to the fish before it becomes food? Sandbank. Sand and stone. Sandbank. Fish. How does one turn fish into food? Fishing harbor. Link to the minimap. Fishing harbor. There's only 3 of them. One is pretty close, though, in Saratoga. Those are all the fishing grounds, so we can get fish from all those places and take it to these 3 places. Which is not an amazing way to do this, I don't think. Oh, we're in debt. Let's kick up the speed and see if it continues, or... Because if we continue to get in further debt, then we'll probably want to actually turn one of the trains off. Send it to a depot and have it sit there for a while. Ooh, yeah, that's not great. Transfer credit per train. Which in turn means that we're not getting very much money overall compared to the running costs, which are, for this time period in the game, astronomical. Looks like there's different kinds of breakdowns in this JRF as well. It's kind of interesting. Train 2 and train 3. So we're going to actually send this guy to the depot after it unloads at the other end. Duchess. Cheaper to run. Alright, so that's stopped there now. Not sure why it cost us a crap load of money, but for some reason it did. Yeah, it looks like we caught up to the demand a little bit. Because it can take 250 each per trip. So it looks like we were actually burning down the Twitchton Old Town Hall passenger count. So let's see, we can get... Oh, looks like that sandbank is inside of the catchment for McLean Heights. That's weird. Not a sandbank, a quarry. I talk so good. Yeah, the trains cost just a colossal amount. You know, I actually know where train 3 is. I put it there. I think we'll need to be a little bit more modest for a while. Okay. So at some point we're going to need to start importing from the other continents. But that's a ways down the line. We don't need to worry about that quite just yet. Let's borrow some money so we can keep building. Yes, that is always the thing to do. Build, 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 no matter what. We are going to do something a little funky here with this road, just so that we don't completely block off the town's ability to grow. Give it one more tile so that it can get around me a little bit. So that's going to slow the trains down going around that corner a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. So we've dodged out of the way of that river, which is good. That means that we don't have to build that particular bridge. Actually, that's really ugly. We'll just have the two platforms be separated by a little small distance. Now, I think what we're going to want to do is actually bus people to and from Dresden. We do not want to run a train line over there, because that's going to be costly and it's not going to really pay for itself at all, ever. Okay. Yeah, you know what? This is stupid. I don't want to. I don't want to have these on a split level after all, because that will be very expensive to upkeep. Especially if I'm going to just be able to do that anyway. So yeah, anybody from Dresden is going to need to come to Palmer first. Around this, whatever this industry is. Metal fabrication. Building materials. So yeah, they're pretty much only going to transfer that way. But what we are going to do, instead of just leaving it otherwise how it is we're going to run some streetcar track. Mostly this is just for kicks, and because I think the streetcars are pretty cool. We're just going to have that run right through downtown. We're going to have a couple of stations here, including, of course, one that terminates right next to the train station. So we're going to have some streetcar, passenger streetcar stuff. And this. Have that there, and then we're actually going to remove that tile. Wait, can we do that? No, we can't do that. Ah! There we go. Now it's not going to cause issues. Then we'll have another stop. Let's put that here. Palmer! How am I supposed to serve you if you won't? Okay. I'm fine. It's fine. we're just going to blow some money on trees because that will make them happy. 0440 Class A Shay. I mean, I'm not looking to expand in that regard just yet. Appreciate the offer, though. Let's see, what do I need to know? We need to know whether Palmer hates me, so I'm just gonna keep doing this for a minute. I just need to build a couple stations. I've already done most of the stuff you're gonna dislike. So the reason that I'm doing this, for any that don't know, is that the local authority will inexplicably like you better if you build trees. Which is a weird way to put planting trees, but you know what I mean. I need to turn around here and here. Yeah, the tree thing is very strange. There's actually a little bit of that sort of seeped into Roller Coaster Tycoon, because there's a lot, like, it costs money to delete trees. So that actually happens quite a lot. Some random city is just like, nope, you don't get to do anything here. And then there's just nothing that you can do. But the thing is that in what appears to be some kind of environmentalist message, OpenTTD allows you to get around that by planting tons of trees. Now, this being a video game with some unforeseen consequences to its setup, there are, of course, ways to horrifically mess the system up. Specifically, what you can do is you can build trees and then delete the trees and then build the same trees again, because it costs it costs you less reputation with the city to delete trees than it does to make trees than you gain by making trees. So you can just constantly cycle through that, and eventually it'll just be fine. Let's see, passenger trams. We're gonna demo some steam trams in this little two-town area. So these are both just super slow. That's actually quite expensive. Yeah, so I think we've got our first instance of something that's distinctly better. Oh crap. I messed up. Something that's like distinctly better than what we've been using up to this point. Most of what we've dealt with is like, yeah, this is, this has some advantage, but isn't a clear yes/no. In this case, the 2-horse passenger tram is worse in pretty much every way than the Stanley First trams. The Carter trams, on the other hand, are just awful. So we're gonna just buy a couple of these. We're gonna send them around the town. Just gonna go to Palmer Central, Palmer Old Town Hall, Palmer, Watt Street, Dresden. And it's going to get an implicit order to go to Watt Street as well on the way back. Why are there 2 James Watt Street stops? That's very odd. We actually want quite a few of these, I think. So we'll have 8. We'll treat it like a city because there's just such a large area that it's covering. They're gonna inch out of there. Yeah, they're moving at a pretty decent clip considering the time period. All right, Palmer, prepare to be amazed by the technology of the future. Steam-powered trams! Whoa! What happened to trains? How can they be that unprofitable? How's that even possible? Collective profit last year, negative 6,000. Wow! I mean, part of that is just because it's train 3, but jeez, what happened? Alright, let's see. Oops, wrong menu. Is it just unutilized? Is that what's going on here? I mean, it sure looks like everything is set up properly. Why are these guys not able to get where they're going? Oh, that's why. More road construction, because that doesn't get annoying at all. I wonder if there's a way to make that stop happening. Gosh, now just no link here at all. Ugh. Alright, now there's going to be a mad rush for all of these trams to get to Palmer Central. Tiny bits of income. This is, of course, fast forwarded that we're seeing right now. They have to complete at least one full circuit before they'll start timetabling themselves to properly space out. Yay! Somebody actually made it all the way to Palmer Central. It's very silly. Oh, they're trying so hard. They're trying so very hard. So road vehicle income this year seems to be up by a little bit, which is good. Oh, come on! What is this? It's not even real road construction. There's no road here. It's just the tram tracks. Frick. It's just mean. Alright, let's get the next narrow gauge station built. Yeah, I know they're lost. I know. I know. Let's give them something fancy. Concrete. Ooh, 10-wheelers. I like 10-wheelers, they're really cool. We're not going to be building them because we're tiny and pitiful. Local authority refuses to... Well, maybe I could serve you better if you'd let my trams go where they're going. You terrible little beastie. Oh my goodness. I'm kind of cheesed off about that. Alright. Let's fast forward it and see if they get any better. Oh man, there's maintenance costs enabled. Oof. Kind of regretting setting that option. Class A Shay 0440. Yay, somebody finally made it to Dresden. Oof. I mean, I'm still losing money very, very fast, but... At least some of our profit margins are increasing a little bit. Vehicle breakdowns suck. Boy. Express train, neat. We are again not going to be building that just yet, but it's nice to know that it's there. I'm going to put the station here and then probably trim off one tile of that, just so that we can get it a little bit neater. Oh, come on, man. I don't even have the money for the trees. Okay. Now we should be able to build this. We'll need another passing track, so let's set that up over here. We'll make it a little bit longer than we need so that it's hopefully a tiny bit future-proofed. Alright, let's check the trains now that they've had a year of running in new mode. Mediocre profit last year. Oh boy. So it looks like, yeah, the biggest cost center is property maintenance. Oh. Loan interest. Crap. That's pretty much what put us over, otherwise we'd be turning profit. Oh, that's irritating. Alright. Back in hometown Twitchton, it's looking like... no, we don't want a Canadian Pacific, whatever. Looks like we might want to switch over to trams here fairly soon. Because these guys are not pulling their weight anymore. They're just... Looks like there's too much capacity. Or not enough capacity, it's overutilized. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, the road construction strikes again. Alright, we can definitely squeeze some more money out of this place. Let's see where... There's our station. No, our depot. New vehicles. Might be time to start looking at steam buses. Or it might not, because they're extremely expensive and are barely an improvement. And they're not an improvement over 4-horse passenger carriages. Yikes. Wow, that's kind of a disaster. Okay, well, let's send 7 and 3 back to the depot, and then clone the crap out of them, I think. Depoting both of these guys, and then we'll just make a bunch more. There's just going to be horses everywhere in this town. Also, I am absolutely not above cheating to make this game work out a little bit more cleanly. So, just so you guys are ready for that, if it should happen. Alright, so we've doubled the road vehicle capacity in Twitchton. We should probably start expanding into new lines, but honestly, just no. Just no. Okay, back to trains. Cheating to have the best society. Yeah! Well, honestly, the entire project that spawned this scenario, like the whole reason that this exists, is to have essentially an OpenTTD model railway. like just to pretty the crap out of it and have it look nice and run smooth, and like not to worry too much about the gameplay, but to make it very, very nice and pretty and realistic and fancy. I am still going to try and play it legit if I can, but like if it comes right down to it, like I'm going to be saving the company instead of not cheating. Oh look, Dresden is unhappy with the service being provided because it has a road construction directly in front of the track that goes to it. Wow, the conditions in that place really are not good. I'm not really sure what we can do about that. So new vehicles, yeah, 8,304 plus. Yeah, I think this was the. We must have done it right at the turn of the year. So that's all of the new horses and carriages. Oh my good grief! Can we not with the bulldozers, the anachronistic bulldozers? That is a pain. Oh, and McLean is built directly into that spot, so there's no point in having the track set up like that anymore. Which means we can get a little bit of money back for this, I think, and lower our property maintenance cost, which is very high. And now we can run a track all the way to Mill Creek. All the hecking way. And in fact, we're going to do the same trick here as we did before. I'm gonna figure out what groups these things are supposed to be in. And then we're going to depot them and double them up. Ooh. 4 of those. Let's... All right. Get those out of the way. Number 9 gets 4 copies, and all of them get to leave. That'll hopefully alleviate some of the problems we've got up here. Yeah, they've built up quite a fair few people waiting, because these can only take up to 10 people at a time, and that's kind of big for what we have available right now. But what are you gonna do? The big question now is where to put the train station. I'm tempted to put it over with the junkyard, but I don't think that that's probably a good idea because I want that to be served separately. We want it close to this hotel if we can get it there. So back over to our rail. Back over to our station selector, our very, very large station selector. Let's see what we got. Stuff I can't pronounce, but the buildings look nice, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is just for cosmetics. And to cheat the catchment area a little bit, I guess. I'm gonna have it pointing this direction. And it's also going to be attached to Mill Creek Woods, I think. Even though that's a little bit cheaty, it's going to be a lot nicer than having to run another bus line over here and just deal with all that crap. We will probably be doing that later, but not right now. Actually scoot it back by one tile. Then we will remove those two station components. I think that'll be a little nicer even though it doesn't have buffer stops. Okay, so we'll run this line out over here. We're just gonna have a really long straightaway because trains like straightaways, because they can build up a little bit more speed. Oops. Ah. Money, man. Okay, now we can put some bridges down. And we do not care at all about speed, but we do want a viaduct because it looks nicer. And ultimately, that is kind of the point. But I mean, that's just lovely looking. That's just very pleasant. It's also a little bit future-proof when we get the slightly faster narrow gauge. We need another passing track, which will be... yeah, we'll want it here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that should be plenty long enough. I'm almost thinking we might want more signals along that track. More. There is railroad track there, actually. There you go. And this is actually just slightly future-proof this if we want a longer station eventually. Then we can expand it here and here. Or, well, actually both of these tiles into here if we want to. Well, I'm not really sure there's much point to that. And we'll rebuild those so the trains can now come through. And also signal them. That signal as well. And they should all gain implicit orders to go all the way to the end of the track, but I'm not sure about that, and I will be changing the orders momentarily. We might have better luck with more trains now. Clean Heights, far end. But yeah, so here's the thing. We're actually not going to do that anymore. We're going to delete that and go to Mill Creek Woods at the far end of the platform instead, despite being way further away. Train 1 is lost because it has no idea where I'm asking it to go. It's also not entirely impossible that I've got another signal backwards somewhere. So that sort of thing seems to happen to me a lot. Nope, signals all look good. All we need to do is be able to do is keep up with the running costs. And that depot is basically just going to be to catch anything that comes up here and doesn't get maintenance for a long distance beforehand. So yeah, we got one at roughly the halfway point. Those two are definitely further apart. We might want another one over here. So let's put that there, and that should be okay. So all the cities along here have services running to them properly. We've got internal buses, they've got our external train line now as well, which should be ludicrously profitable now, assuming that it makes the trip in a decent time. That's going to be the main issue. Why did I have this open? Now, which ones of these are all going to Mill Creek internally? Crap. Yeah, you know what? We're just going to activate Train 3. These services could do with names, but I'm not sure what to name them. Alright, let's see if any of this pays off at all. Basically what we're concerned about is the passengers at either end. We want them to start wanting to go all the way across the map. Right now they don't, which is understandable, but concerning. Maintenance outside Dresden, Train 3 is. Okay, so they've started to notice that you can... No, they haven't. Never mind, I'm wrong. That's a little concerning. Yeah, so the rating is also based on how often vehicles visit. So, hey, Mill Creek has noticed the existence of other cities. That's good. Which means that although we are losing money quite rapidly, these longer distance trains should hopefully be making a little bit more money. Mill Creek is now starting to send people to Palmer and Dresden, which is exactly what we want. Twitchton Old Town Hall is starting to send people to McLean Woods. Only a few. The vast majority of them are still internal, of course. Got horses milling around like ants. Everything's fine. You know what we'll do to make internal movement in Mill Creek a little bit nicer is we'll put a different station tile over here. Not enough cash. Oh, right. And this is going to connect to Mill Creek Woods. And then we're going to remove this. So now all of the traffic through Mill Creek Woods is actually going to be a lot closer to this. This is, of course, still just an unbelievable mess. Yeah, so Mill Creek is starting to produce some outbound traffic, which is nice. That's what we want. The intermediary stations seem to be doing okay. We're actually making some money now. So we're probably going to let it sit how it is for a while before trying to expand again. As much as I would like to expand again immediately, I just don't think that's going to work out very well. Oh, we had over 20,000 for just a second. Oh no. Sell. Repay. Whatever. Oh no! Alright, property maintenance costs have kicked in pretty heavily, but we're actually now offsetting them with the train income. How much traffic needs to go across the island? Because that's going to kind of determine what we can do with all of this. Yeah, so it's actually generating a fair amount of intercity traffic. Like, not a huge ton, but it's doing pretty okay. Dresden hates me, but Palmer's fine. Why? Dresden, come on, don't complain when people actually want to visit you. Tiny little place in the middle of nowhere, that. I'm considering just not serving Dresden anymore. Right now it's costing us quite a bit of money to get the streetcars out there. I mean, not tons of money or anything, but noticeable amount. They're not really generating or receiving almost any traffic. Yeah, there's like 10, 15 passengers there at any given time. And that keeps happening also. That loveliness. Alright, let's check the cargo distribution. How are we doing on that? So McLean wants more horses from the look of it. And 18 are sharing orders. And 19 and 20 then should be also. So we'll double this up as well. And set them all free. We'll double this one. Set them all free. The trains, let's check their profits. Last year, cumulative 12,000, maybe 13,000. Yeah, 13,000. And massively more this year, but it seems like Train 1 is taking all of it. Huh. That's kind of unintuitive. Seems like we almost might want to run some smaller trains. And then just have them... Oh, but the running costs are almost all the locomotions. not the carriages. It's a bit weird. Well, let's get back to repaying the loan, so we don't get completely drowned in interest. I mean, I would very much like more trains to be running right now, because that's pretty much going to be the way that we make money, ultimately. The year is 1890. And there's a mess. Yeah, that was another... Wow, train income last year, $96,926. Wow. And it looks, which this is actually just about right. Got within the green range all the way along. So yeah, 3 trains are actually pretty much covering it, and we don't need any more. Foster's bus, 6,000 per. We can't afford it. I'd really like to start getting boats going somewhere, but we need to figure out where we're going to carry stuff to. Sand, and stone, and fish are pretty much the sea options. We can also do land-based industries. So, for instance, we've got this bulk terminal, which takes building materials, gasoline, and food, and produces farm supplies and chemicals, which... that's a lot of chemicals. Where do chemicals go? Chemicals go to actually quite a few places. We've got a metal fabrication plant on this island. So that's maybe something we'd want to look at later. I think mostly what we want to deal with is the actual ocean industries. The trouble, of course, is that boats can suddenly go from being very profitable to very unprofitable, depending on how much they're producing and bringing in. There's also port, which can take goods, fruit, manufacturing supplies, and produces engineering supplies. I'd really like to do some kind of food production, because we've got all of these farms. Livestock, plant fibers. There's a lot of farms over here, actually. Mixed farms. Yeah, they're all mixed farms. Wow. Yeah, so we could actually run a service that collects all of these and brings them to a central location and then train stuff out. Or boat stuff out, depending on where it's going. That could be extremely profitable over time. But I'm not sure what we want to do with it just yet. So this link is starting to get saturated, which is exactly what we want. That will give us the opportunity to buy another train. Oh, it's not that saturated. Come on. It's not that bad. Create a group. So we'll distinguish road, streetcar, rail, narrow gauge, in our nomenclature, I think. We do want to replace all of these guys, though, with something faster, better, whatever. Because right now there's no shortage of traffic coming from the main Twitchton and Old Town Hall stops. We might actually just want a dedicated service that runs between the two. I'm not sure about that. Ow. So we can't have it overlap. That's a shame. Okay. Well, let's get our road vehicles list. We're making okay money on these. Not anything amazing, but it usually isn't. It's going to be a little bit tricky to group these up, I think, which is a little annoying. Let's actually wipe out. Oh, that's how it works. Oh, that's cool. Oh, cool, okay. So what we're seeing here is that you can actually change livery by group. So you can have, like, everything running a certain service will have a certain color scheme, and other vehicles of the same type won't, which is normally not possible. Delete that group. We want all buses to be in a group. Twitchton Road vehicles. Now all of these vehicles need to be replaced. Wait, no, that's exactly the opposite of what I want. Wait a minute. Manage list. Replace vehicles. There we go. Add shared vehicles. I don't know what that means. Okay, replace vehicles. Steam buses. Can we afford the upkeep on steam buses? 8 miles an hour, 10 passengers. That's useless. 8 miles, or 4 miles an hour, 8 passengers. That's even more useless. Ack. Well, it's not quite as good as I would have hoped. Looks like we've got some kind of traffic issue here where they're only traveling in one direction smoothly. I just wish we had something a little bit more effective available to get people from one part of this to another. Well, the loan amount's going down, which is good. We've recouped around $100,000, maybe $80,000, I'm not sure. We've got a pretty darn decent train service running here. This is in terrible shape, it looks like. How can we correct this? We need... So that's where most of the people that want to leave Mill Creek are living, is in this stop here. Because this is getting cleared out pretty regularly. Like, here comes a train for that. That's going to probably suck up most of what's in here. Oh, wow. No, never mind, I stand corrected. Yeah, time to invest in another train. Oh, wow. Inflation. Inflation has hit us hard. Alright. So how can we fix this? Well, more stations will definitely help. So what we can do is have stations lined up so that more than one vehicle can clear out at once. I'm going to just temporarily block this off a little bit. So they have to... Well, I can't do that actually. They need to be able to come in and out freely. Well, crap. Let's fast forward this a little bit until somebody comes along. Okay, this guy needs to stop. And he's going to block traffic really, really horribly. It's going to be an absolute mess. But what we can do now is place 2 more of these and then let him resume his route. And that will make it a lot easier for them to disperse all of those passengers in either direction. And it really doesn't matter how many people are building up in town. What we need is to make sure that people can get to this train station, because that's where the profit is. That's basically the best way for us to get moving. And I would like to demo some of these vehicles, but unfortunately we just don't have the money. And I don't want to get us any further into debt than we already are. Wow, $200,000 profit last year alone. Whoo! The running costs last year were $42,528. The income that they produced... Wait, that's not right. Last year, 1890. Something about that doesn't seem right. Yeah, I'm seeing 2 different numbers here. That's weird. A crane car. No capacity, it's purely aesthetic. We will be buying those later, but not right now. It's July 1891. This guy is stuck waiting for a path somewhere. What's going on here? Oh, this is just that really long stretch that doesn't have a passing siding. Okay, let's build that passing siding now, because we've reached a situation where we kind of need it. That's what the cost estimation button is. Forgot. So both of the bridges are going to end in turnouts. That's fine. It's a little weird, but no worries. I think we just need like an alternate path to Dresden. Because this is a wreck, this whole thing. We'll change that in a minute. And now trains can pass each other twice on this section without having to double track it. Double track, I think, is considered best practice for the most part, but I don't think that it really applies to, one, situations where you're as poor as I am right now, with this colossal amount of debt. And two, the situation that we're in with, what am I even thinking of? Wow, I have completely lost my train of thought. Wow, I have no idea what I was going to say. So what can we replace these guys with? How do they compare? So there's that. So I got the normal American. I keep seeing. Oh, here's the express train. So how does that compare? Wow! That's both a lot more expensive and a lot faster. Jeez. Okay. Boy, do we want to go for that? It could be really good. I mean, it's catastrophically expensive at $52,000 per, on top of running cost of $26,000 a year, but that could be really, really useful. Maybe we want consolidation. Really, we just, for this passenger service, we just want speed. Like, that's really the only important thing, is just to make it go faster. And yeah, these expresses are going to be the best way to do that far and away. So let's replace only old vehicles, and then only when we have the money, which basically it'll wait. What I might do is let one of them replace, and then go back and pay down the loan a little bit more. So let's see what happens. We should get like a new vehicle purchased automatically anytime now. I think it requires a certain amount of overhead. I don't remember exactly what the setting is for that. Engine number 1. You know what? You get the replacement. So when does this thing expire? Age 10 years. There's a lifetime capacity of 40 years, looks like. Oof. Oh man, I mean, I like the idea. Wow. Forest. I like the idea of having one of these trains kind of be a little bit more distinguished. Yeah, in this case, I'd probably make it train number 1 gets some kind of special something, or it gets to look fancier or whatever. So, car removal off. Yeah, that's fine. We shouldn't need anything special there. We're actually going to replace automatically. And hopefully train 1 will get it. I don't have any way of telling which one is going to wind up with the new engine. Okay. So Train 4 had actually pretty minimal profit last year, but it seems like that freed Trains 1 and 3 up to make even more than before. So overall, it's working out very, very well. Sometimes individual vehicles don't produce very much income, but the group that they're in does. So like every, you know, it'll check the profits of the entire group as well as each individual vehicle. Unfortunately, that doesn't tell me anything about. That doesn't give me any information from this, which is just something didn't make money. But we'll see. We'll see. So we need 52,000 per engine. So you know what? You're gonna go to one of the depots, and we're gonna manually replace you. With the 440 Express. More like you're gonna crawl there. Clean train depot. Stop at the station first. Now we're going to send you to the depot. And then we're going to use whatever money is left over to pay off more of the loan. Get in there. No, you get to stop here too. Fine. Okay, now will you go to the depot? Will you go to your room? You just passed it! Why did you do that? Oh, whoops. Oh well. I was tempted to manually turn it around to fix that, but it's not worth it. Okay, finally. Alright. So you should get... No? So stumpy. Where are you? 440 Express. Wait, is it not a low speed? What? Oh crap, it's not. Whoops. That's why it hasn't been working. Okay, well, maximum speed. This is the fastest that runs on these tracks. Crap. Whoops. Oh well. That was kind of a waste. Oopsie poopsie. Thought I was being so clever, but then I remembered that I made it all narrow gauge to save money. Well, on the plus side, it means we can pay back a good chunk of the loan. About 10 minutes of the stream left. So what we've accomplished today, we've linked up passenger rail and bus services for most of this island here. It's not much, but it's what we've got. We've named a city Twitchton, which is, of course, all important. And the plan is to link up Seymour, which, if I can recall how to do it, there is actually a planning thing tool. Plan list. New plan. From here to here. So now, if we open up this plans dialog, we can actually see this. We can toggle it on and off. We can delete it when we're done. And we can also hide it. So if we select this, we can conceal it so that we don't see all of these lines all over the place. It's actually quite useful. You can actually see it even from the world map. Very handy, that. And I'm not sure where we're going to make the branch. I think it depends on which side we want to take Seymour's traffic. We may want to run like a short line just from here to here, and kind of keep it at that, and have it be its own thing, its own track. But we also may want to connect it here and branch it that way to connect it up to this end, the Mill Creek end, or the other side of McLean, and link it up to Madison and Twitchton. I'm not sure which way is going to be better. We may end up doing both, or some combination of the three options. But at least as of right now, that's kind of the options that we're considering for that. We're also going to start looking at connecting industries, but I think that's going to need to wait until we have our loan paid down with passengers first. Usually it's kind of the other way around. You do industries first, and then worry about passengers later. But we're going to be weird today. Oh. Whoops. Conceal that guy right there. Or actually, no, we can put this over here because there's a little bit of space next to the jazz jukebox, which is currently playing a Midnight Snow Run, which is track 12. There's some weird things here. There's actually another couple of music GRFs that I've got. There's one that's like Scott Joplin jazz standards. For some reason somebody actually bothered to MIDI-fy all of that. One thing that I'm a little concerned about is that we might grow these cities too quickly to keep up with. So for example, we need to at some point put a train track into this junkyard, or else we will be stuck trucking stuff in and out forever, until and unless we can get the town to put up with us demolishing half of it. We've got the same problem with this guy here, the metal fabrication plant, although I think we can probably get around that with the streetcars eventually. If it comes right down to it, although I hope it doesn't. And then this we can probably link up to pretty easily, but we're going to have to put up with missing our existing track, unless we want to integrate it all into one big line, which, while fun, could also cause some serious traffic congestion for the passenger lines. So we need to make sure to provide plenty of passing areas. And here as well, we have the hotel at the center of town. We also have this stuff out along the edge. So we've got the metal workshop, we've got the port, we've got an arable farm, a machine shop, a sugar refinery, and a sawmill, all sort of in this metropolitan area that we're building up here. And actually, before I forget, there is another thing we need to do, and that is build our headquarters building, which I think is going to live, I think that's going to live just right up on this hill here. And it does generate traffic. It does generate a little bit of passengers, so they're going to actually be a passenger destination for this old town hall station. So that's basically what we have to be concerned about later on. Let's fast forward a little bit longer for the evening, and then we should be done pretty soon. So we will be following up on probably on Twitter about this, just to kind of check in. Are we doing well with the stream so far? How are things looking? Is OpenTTD what we want to keep doing, or do we want to switch to something else? You know, I've got options. I can be flexible. So yeah, we're gonna kind of reevaluate. I personally think this is going well so far. I think this is going to be an excellent way to spend the time. And in addition, we can bring in more players later on as well. All right. Well, with that, I hope you all have a lovely evening, and a pleasant sleep tonight. Make sure to drink a little bit of tea, calm yourself down, have a nice time generally. And we'll be back tomorrow with more OpenTTD. More Twitchton. And with that, good night, everyone.